Välkomna till Stockholms universitet, som sagt. Välkomna till Bolin-centret och till vår allra första klimatfestival och till kvällens paneldebatt. Jag kommer att byta till engelska alldeles strax, så den här debatten kommer att ske på engelska. Kirchner, she will take us through the evening. So I leave over to you now. You present us, and we intend to engage you in this discussion sooner or later. But Karen is in charge of that, and I hope you enjoy, and that we have an interesting 90 minutes ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's just see to it, everyone together, that we have an interesting evening. And I'm sure with this headline, we will. Challenges in communicating science, lessons from Arctic research. Please allow me firstly to introduce the panel. As you heard, Thomas Cronin, US Geological Survey, this year's Bolin lecturer. Susanna Baltscheffsky, who is a journalist at Sweden Radio of the program Klotet. She's the producer of Klotet, for those who know what that is. Gustavsson is the principal at Väsby Gymnasium, upper secondary school, municipality owned. We have Jato here, who is the Arctic ambassador to the Arctic Council for Sweden. Nina Kirchner, who you just met, director of research at the Bolin Center. So, as you heard, we're in the middle of a festival here, a 4-day festival on climate change, arranged by the Bolin Center for Climate Research and also the House of Science. And this festival is a continuation and development of the earlier Bolin Days for Youngsters, where young people, children and young adults, were invited to take part in activities, lectures, learn from presentations of citizen science or popular science. And now the festival is open to the general public, which it seems that the public is very grateful for. How many visitors have you had so far?
We had 1,200 visitors since Monday when we started. So that is quite a... It's not because of me, it's because of our communication team and outreach team and those who have worked behind the scenes. It's not because of me.
Well, you play a part, as do your colleagues as well there. So climate change, of course, is serious business, and its consequences are on top of the agenda globally, nationally, and locally. But this is a festival. So we are focusing on empowerment, on solution, on progress, welcoming engaged participants at all levels, from school children to researchers. All are eager to know and learn more and take passionate and knowledge-based action in these matters, which is a good thing. So we have a topic, challenges in communicating science, lessons from Arctic research. A question in general, the voice of science and its impact in decision-making, prioritization and awareness. And we have a case in particular, which is the Arctic region. We have our panel of 5 with 5 different perspectives. We have yourselves as well. Welcome to ask questions after a while. And we have a maximum of 1.5 hours at our disposal for this. And this seminar is being live streamed. Thus, the microphones we wear and use and you don't hear a thing is because they go straight into the computer that Mafalda is controlling over there. So it's live streamed, and it can also be viewed afterwards, so you can take a look at home and experience later again what we will go through here tonight. So let's see, we have some slides I would like to show. Nina, to establish common ground here. First of all, just say a few words about the Bolin Center as such.
Yes, the Bolin Center is named after Bolin. He was a professor of meteorology here at Stockholm University, and he was also the founder of what is called the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And we named the center after him. We are an umbrella organization for more than 300 scientists right now. It's also, the Bolin Center is also a collaboration between Stockholm University, and we are organized in 8 research areas. We have expanded quite recently. We used to be 6 research areas, and the first ones we just added number 7 and 8 recently. So first, in the early years, we focused on fundamental processes in atmosphere and ocean and so forth, and recently we have included processes, what does climate do to landscape and what does climate change do to biodiversity and so forth. And especially with the biodiversity, come to Tom's lecture tomorrow, which is taking this up also in the discussion.
So, Nina, what is the Arctic?
It is home. The Arctic. We have a map here that shows the Arctic, and there are different definitions of the Arctic. You can define it meteorologically, you can define it geographically, but this is the Arctic that we see here. In the middle of the map, you would have the North Pole, then you have Greenland in the lower left corner, and then you have other areas of land around it, but basically the Arctic is an ocean, I would say.
How many people live there, do you know?
I don't know.
Andres knows?
Should know.
I
heard the figure around 5 million.
5 million people. Yeah. And how many countries have a territorial claim up there?
It's 8 countries.
8 countries.
The United States, Canada, Denmark, Greenland, the Nordic countries, and Russia.
So, you know a little bit. Is there anyone who would like to add some facts about the Arctic, just briefly, so we know what we're talking about? Tom, maybe? Just the microphone. Because there are different definitions, as Nina explained.
Yes, thank you. There are many definitions. I personally, as a geologist who actually began working in the Arctic in New York State. Why? Because there was an ice age. There were many ice ages. So I frankly view the Arctic as including mid-latitudes as far as ice sheets like the one you had right here expanded south because it's a key part of understanding climate change in the Arctic today. If you don't understand how it changed in the past and why, you're never going to understand what's going on today. So my definition is quite broad, and that would include the Arctic ecosystems as well as ice sheets and glaciers and sea ice.
Thank you. And Nina, you're a fan of maps, which you should be because it's your discipline there. So why did you want to include this one in our PowerPoint presentation?
I just put it in because I really love old maps, and this shows the Arctic as it was pictured in 1623. No one knew anything about the Arctic at that time, so here is a map where Mercator illustrated what he thought would be what the Arctic would look like. So you see these fancy yellow islands centered around the North Pole thing where there were palm trees and the ocean paradise and everything. So this was the idea how it looked like. We found out eventually that it was different from that. Things changed, and this is on much shorter time scales than geological.
Absolutely. Thank you. Could you please pass the mic on to Tom, and I'll just return to the first slide if I can, Mafalda. Yes, I can, obviously, to have it as a background. There. So, Tom, this year's Bolin lecturer, senior research geologist at the US Geological Survey, Reston, Virginia. Also an adjunct faculty, Georgetown, at the University School of Foreign Service. Also former scientist at Office of Science and Technology Policy. It's not really fair to ask you to sum up your career very briefly, but I will anyway. What is your research focus?
Does that mean because I'm really old?
You have been prolific in your work.
I'm a geologist by training, so I work on sediments, mud. That's not very sophisticated, but my colleagues work on ice cores, corals, tree rings, and other archives of climate change. Sediments contain so much, we could talk all night about them. But basically, we use different geochemical, physical, or biological proxies found in the sediments. Pollen would be a simple one. To reconstruct climate change over all time scales in all regions. I personally work in the oceans and estuaries, including the Arctic, where I've worked a number of years on and off with people here at this excellent institute. So our efforts are designed to understand natural climate change and variability, its causes, its patterns, as a baseline, basically, for the climate changes that are going on today, and obviously those that will go on in the future. I mean, I can put it real simply. If we don't understand past climate changes, it's hard to imagine we're going to understand those events going on today that you hear about so often in the media, and we hardly can expect to understand future climate changes So I'm a firm believer in the past being the key to the future.
And if I'm not totally mistaken, your research has supported the theory that climate change or changes sea levels can happen very, very quickly, not gradually, as many people tend to believe.
You're absolutely correct. Many climate changes in the past have occurred abruptly. Number two, I would emphasize that some of the best records come from Greenland, and those are records of atmospheric change, and often associated with changes in the ocean, and often associated with very rapid decline in ice sheets and land ice, which of course would imply a rapid change in sea level, a rapid rise in sea level. We know those things have happened in the past. It's a question of whether or not our current two ice sheets, one of which you saw, the other one at the South Pole, are behaving in a way that might be catastrophic in terms of coastal zones. Of course, you live in a place where sea level's falling, so you may not worry about it too much. And of course, why is it falling here? It's falling here because you had an ice sheet on top of you and it pushed you down, and now you're rebounding back up. But for other places, it's just the opposite. Not only is global sea level rising, but your land is subsiding. And yes, to varying degrees, climate change can occur rapidly, often associated with ocean circulation changes, for example, large glacial lake drainage events, which have occurred in the past. So there's no question that climate change isn't gradual in the past, and nothing that occurs in the geologic record is necessarily gradual. Just look at the meteor impact 65 million years ago. So you're absolutely right.
Thank you. Susanna, you're a seasoned journalist, not only from the radio, you also work for several magazines and newspapers. So Klotet is on the top of your agenda at the moment, the producer. What is Klotet? Could you describe it?
Klotet is the environmental program in P1 at public radio, and we broadcast every Wednesday. So we did one today about microplastics in the oceans. And we have done, of course, several about different aspects on climate change, like the big coral bleaching event that occurred in the Great Barrier Reef. I only worked there since February, so I have a longer history in daily newspaper in Svenska Dagbladet, and also last 4 years at Ny Teknik as editor-in-chief, which was a great experience actually to write about technology.
And your focus is environmental and climatic issues, right? Do you find that the interest in this question has it increased during the years that you have been writing or reporting about them?
These years are so many by now, so I would say that they go like a roller coaster. And sometimes they just skyrocket, and sometimes they fall, and it depends a lot on we say wallet issues. If we are in worse economic times, the interest is more towards your salaries and get tax policies and so on. But I think that Göteborg's University of Gothenburg SOM Institute, that they make opinion measurements every year, and environment usually is among top 5. And I haven't checked this year, but environment and climate is sometimes they say environment, sometimes they say climate, but it's quite often in top. So I would say yes, there is most of the time an interest, but sometimes the interest is really high. And I'm not sure really where we are right now, because I think there are many other things that's happening, and I think the whole situation with big migrating people that are migrating from the countries, and ultra-right parties coming up, and some new president somewhere more worrying or taking more attention right now than climate issues.
And so this is also part of our topic, challenges in communicating. How do you keep on top of the agenda? How do you keep up interest? And how do you reach out? John, upper secondary school, Väsby Gymnasium. How many students do you have?
We have
about 700 students, and 200 of them are unaccompanied youths. So they are recently coming to Sweden.
Yeah.
And that is a very special challenge, of course, to make them learn Swedish in the first place and then learn about the Swedish society. And then we have a quite interesting project. We have a collaboration with the University of Stockholm and with Professor Alistair Skelton here and Hans Johansson. They make a field trip to Ireland every year. You know, the island in west of Scotland, and every village is called after a famous whiskey. There you can make research for real with these young students. They go out in the field and make observations, and they see traits of things that has happened for about 700 million years ago, and there are evidence that once upon a time was the Earth was covered with ice, and it was called the snowball Earth theory. And the students is some sample of the evidence they can find, and then they write about it in reports. And the next day they go out for another trip and find evidence that speaking against the theory of snowball Earth. So then they had to make a decision and make an analysis and make a conclusion what they believe is the right theory. And this is it's a great opportunity for us at the upper secondary school to have this opportunity to make research and to teach the students that it is possible to create knowledge and how you do that. And that is very inspiring for them, that because one thing that is very important is that the student must believe it is possible to make a difference, because if they do this or that, it make an impact of the future for the Earth, and they must believe that it's possible to do that. And I think through this little project that it is that we can teach them that it is possible to make a difference.
Sounds absolutely fantastic, wouldn't you agree? And I would believe this is quite unique because you were invited to the government, the Swedish government, to speak about this, right?
And Alice were there as well, and we were speaking about this, and that was much more easier for me because that was in Swedish.
I'll just ask you a very brief question. Does this initiative, this collaboration, show any results in the number of students that apply for your school, etc.?
We have increased our numbers. That is shows our gymnasium or the upper secondary school. From it's had doubled the number of students that want to study on our natural science program. So that is really
Great.
Good for us.
Yeah, and good for the students and good for all of us in that case. Andreas, you are the Arctic Council ambassador for Sweden. Could you please explain what the Arctic Council is and what its purpose is?
I mean, the Arctic Council is an organization composed of 8 countries, the countries I just mentioned. And it's basically, I mean, the main purpose is to, I would say, create a good environment between the Arctic states and promote an agenda of sustainable development and environmental protection. Those are the, I mean, basically the main purpose. And also taking into consideration indigenous peoples, of course, and their rights as inhabitants of the Arctic. But I mean, during these last years, of course, climate issues has come to the forefront of our agenda. So I've been dealing primarily with climate issues, I would say, within the Arctic Council, trying to push the Council to adopt a more progressive climate position, which is not always easy.
Because you also have direct contact with the people living there. So what is your impression? What are their feelings? What do they wish you to bring to the Council?
Well, first of all, I mean, the Arctic is extremely diverse. So if you talk to people in Luleå, living in Luleå, the Swedish Arctic, the ordinary people in the street, they would say we're not Arctic. I mean, the Arctic is some, with a bear's lip. But of course, if you speak to indigenous people and the Sami community, and especially about climate issues, it's apparent that this is something that is happening here and now. For them, it's very obvious. I mean, it affects the reindeer herding, fishing, and so on. So, I mean, for most people, I think there is a tendency to wish that it's happening tomorrow or in the future, and it's happening elsewhere but not here. Yeah. But I think it's an important voice to listen to the indigenous people, because they could contradict that false optimism.
Yeah, so very close to home, their issues there, I can hear. Thank you. Nina, Director of Research, but also Associate Professor of Glaciology here at the university, and a regular guest lecturer you are as well at the Department of Arctic Geology at University Centre in Svalbard. So teaching there, but you also do other things. What do you do at Svalbard?
Well, I'm interested in ice sheets, and we all realize that ice sheets cannot be studied without looking into the ocean. And so these go together, and Svalbard is one of the places that you can easily, logistically reach, so to speak. There's a university center there. So I'm there a couple of times every year, and whenever I come back, people ask, of course, how was it? Do you see any changes and stuff like that? And it's also because, I mean, we work a lot in the Arctic. We go on these big expeditions with the icebreakers, and then it's always very easy to come home with these flashy pictures of expeditions and to explain what is happening and what we did and so forth. But in everyday life, you don't have these flashy pictures all the time, and the work that you do is not so easy to show and make it understandable for people. So this is also one of the reasons why we thought this topic would be good to discuss. How do we communicate what we do when we do the real work, and not this shiny stuff that is so easy to communicate and to show with beautiful pictures. How do we communicate that? And this is part of what we do in the Bolin Center. We try to reach out to the general public and try to communicate what we do and why it's important.
So what is your experience in communicating as a scientist? You know, in communication takes a sender and a recipient. So someone has to give out the message and someone else has to receive it on the other. How many of you perceive yourselves as senders of information or communication? Yes, of course. You don't? You don't?
I
Yes.
send it, but I don't know if it's received.
No.
No, to be honest,
Mike.
my job at the Geological Survey is to do research, basically, not to make policy, but when asked to help with information, understanding, interpretation. In lecturing at university, though, I do the same thing. And the reason is the very reason for this group to get together, and that is one finds a lot of opinions about climate change and the Arctic, but not a lot of knowledge in non-scientific community. So it's my job to provide that knowledge and let them move on, whether they're going, whatever profession they're going on to. The more general topic of sending information is complicated and involves social media, blogs, newspapers, traditional, non-traditional, and a lot of political viewpoints.
If you don't mind my asking, how are you with social media? You use it?
Very social. No, I mean, I know what's going on, and you can see it in the students.
Yeah.
A lot of them rely on it. Some people think it's the greatest thing for science in general. You can't stop the trend. It's a question of whether or not one can be educated on these topics through it. I don't know. I'm sure there are studies out there of this kind of communication.
Nina, you just expressed frustration in reaching out. Have you ever experienced that something actually gets through to people then, from the scientist's point of view?
Yes, we do sometimes, but sometimes, I mean, it's not always pink and peachy. Sometimes it's really hard to get the message out because it either the message doesn't want to be received, or you really cannot find this common ground where you can communicate. And I think, I mean, our basic task originates, I mean, we're scientists, so we were not trained in education. These days we all offer media training to the young researchers and so forth. But basically, it was not the original profession that we chose. But now we have been thrown into the situation that we have to do it. So now we need to deal with it, and we have to try. And we need the help also. I mean, we need help from journalists, for instance. Journalists love to ask questions where you get a black or white or yes or no answer. But we cannot give these answers. It's impossible. And I talked to people who work with the stock market, and they said we have just as much as uncertainties as you have in the climate discussion. They never talk about their uncertainties. But we mention it all the time. It's maybe our own fault. I don't know. But maybe we should just not do it and just pretend that here's the answer. Because in economy, people do that all the time.
Susanna, Susanna, it seems that this is directed to you. Are the scientists doing something wrong, or is it that we put too much pressure on them to communicate themselves?
I don't really know. I think that the communications departments at universities are really good at trying to reach us. And maybe I've had like 25 press releases, not a day, but maybe 2 or 3 days in my mailbox from universities. And of course, broadcasting one show a week. Maybe one of them could be picked in a news, small news part that we have. But of course, being a journalist, you want to have your unique story. You want to have, you want to give something extra to just your readers, because you really want to give them good reading and good understanding. And sometimes you just want to write a short news, so you can see that, wow, this is a nice piece in the newspaper, but that wouldn't give anyone a broader picture. And sometimes if you have time, you need to really give a broader, more complex picture than just a press release can give. And then I myself want to get in contact and touch with the scientists. So, but of course, then again, there's media is in a crisis, and people are, the newsrooms, redaktionerna is small, they are smaller and smaller, and everybody has to be able to do everything, like filming with your iPhone. And
to the American delegation now, for example, not about the scientific findings, but the economic advantages of a green transformation of the economy. That, would you prefer to produce solar energy or go back to the coal industry? And so maybe you have to find smart ways to communicate.
What triggers the sender
is
what you're describing.
Yeah,
so you have to know what their interests are. Maybe I just hang on with the ministerial meeting. I go back to you on this, but I'd just like to ask Tom, you've been working in the political corridors, haven't you? So how do you actually reach out to politicians? Can it be done?
I do whatever my bosses ask me to do, and that might include a briefing of officials, meeting with students, education groups, local and not just national level people. And I write well, so I write a lot of text for people as an information source, but I don't get directly involved with anything I'm not asked to do, but I certainly write a lot. In that sense, I have 20 years ago, this climate thing is not new, okay? 20 years ago, I worked in the White House Science Office. I was just a scientist doing my job, being asked, but it was before the very important Kyoto Climate Treaty, which was signed in Japan in 1997. And so I did see how this operates, and I find a lot that's gone on the last 5 to 10 years, kind of deja vu all over again. It's not new. It hasn't been addressed on the international stage. You all know about the Paris meeting. I have no involvement with that in the sense that other than I follow it. And I don't have any magic answers, which maybe is because we don't have this level of communication. I kind of like what Nina said, because when I talk to a journalist, I'll talk tomorrow, I'll probably get too technical, and journalists just, thank you very much, they don't want that. They want a story on the right or the left, and all you have to do to get rid of them is bore them with technical details, and it works every time, trust me. But the fact of the matter is, and I'm not, especially the PBS journalists, you're in a different world. Some of the documentaries are fantastic. I can tell you some to go see. But the routine journalists who, they really want a headline. They want that arm waving, and then that comes out and it gets in the system. And is it a major discovery? Well, it depends on the discovery. In the climate arena, I can't judge the motivations of the media in general. I'll let you decide. You can read what you want. You can read the blogs you want. All right? Just don't believe anything you read. So I tell my students, how can you believe something about a highly technical subject from someone who can write anything they feel like and have nothing to back it up? Maybe they do have something to back it up. You don't know, do you?
Shooting
You might
some
like reading.
pictures and writing.
So in
for
terms of means of
of communication,
I much prefer,
I much prefer Susanna's call me old-fashioned, and I want to hear a word about the education system, because especially a special school like this one, because it seems to be
at the forefront,
at the
because
forefront, because it's not university.
It's pre-university, and so how much are these students getting? You know, you
You can major in biology,
oceanography
in college, geology like me,
physics,
chemistry, math.
but you're not
But you're not going to major in climatology, except very few schools. You're going to major in math or physics, applied physics, and then you're going to go on to do that atmospheric type stuff.
Weather,
meteorology.
That's
Not what we do.
Not weather,
Not
meteorology. But I want
to hear about
the
communication going on
in the
high schools.
In Sweden, because in the United States it completely varies, because we're not a centralized education system. Depends on the state, depends on the county. I want to hear about the high school.
Sure. Now feel free to open up. If you wish to say something, indicate. John, do you feel up to answering that question?
I'm not sure, because I can speak for my schools, but I'm not sure I'm speaking for everybody's school in Sweden. But there is what's going on in the schools are, of course, there is in the curriculum that you have to emphasize on these climate changes, and it's within all the subjects, primarily in all the school. But then it depends on how you work with those curriculum issues. So you have to be you must be engaged of these topics if you are going to make any impact on the way you work with those questions. It's
but it's compulsory to bring it up.
Yeah.
On a cross-disciplinary level.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear.
But then it depends on the teachers, of course, how dedicated they are, and which relations they create with the students. Do they listen to the teachers? Do they want to follow them through these really? Because it's a problem when you are a student. You can choose to go by train instead of taking the flight. You can go by bicycle instead of car, but the icebergs are melting anyway. It doesn't matter, you can believe, and what I do doesn't matter. So they give up.
They resign.
Yeah.
Because it's too much.
Yeah. Because they can't see that it is possible to make a change, and that, I think, is the most important thing for us in the high school. It's to teach them and to encourage them that there is a difference what you choose to do or not to do.
But I've spoken to all these people before, so I know that you do this methodically, repeatedly,
showing the kids that they can make a change, they can make choices, deliberate choices in their lives. So this is why the value, the core value of your school, right?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that's the most important thing we can do, because you, as an individual, you have to make choices, and that is what defines you as a human being. That you have the freedom, have the free will to make choices where you can make choices that is good for you, and you can make choices that is bad. And it's a core thing with the democracy as well. If we don't make the choice that we should have democracy, then it will disappear, because we have to fight for it every day, otherwise it will be gone. So it's not by nature given, you have to fight for it. And it's the same with the environmental, you have to fight for it.
So in a way, you use science and communications through science to build people up, to promote democracy, to raise children to become responsible adults in this way. And it works, obviously.
Oh yeah, I have fantastic teachers at my school. They are dedicated and do a very fine job.
Andres, can I just turn to you now, within brackets here on what I promised before. Your ministerial meeting, the 10th in Fairbanks last year.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting actually. I mean, the main goal of that ministerial meeting was actually for the ministers of the 8 Arctic countries to sign a ministerial declaration. And this is more than a piece of paper, at least in theory. I mean, it's a guiding document for the Arctic Council, and the way you describe climate and the solutions that you propose would guide the work of the Arctic Council for the 2 coming years. So it was quite an important document actually, and I actually boarded the airplane in Stockholm with the draft that we all thought was pretty good. And we mentioned Paris, mentioned the implementation of Paris. It was very clear on the description of the problems related to climate in the Arctic. When I landed finally in Seattle, I realized that there was another draft declaration in my email, and suddenly the references to Paris were deleted, and the text was substantially weakened. And of course, this was a major problem for us and for some other, I would say most other member states as well. So apparently, the United States had at that point chosen to redraft the declaration, and my minister was also up in the air, and everything was.
And your minister is?
But finally, we managed. We sat down in the morning, a couple of hours before, signing. The minister signed the agreement, and we tried to find formulations on these issues, including the Paris Agreement, that would allow the American delegation to finally sign. And surprisingly, we actually made it. It was quite dramatic. We had this proposal, and it was sent up to one of the airplanes where the Secretary of State was on, and we were all waiting. Will it happen? Will it not happen? And finally, it came down with an approval. I don't know, and maybe that's a question to you, Tom. Does this mean that the Americans will finally stay within because basically what it said is that we take notice of the entry into force of the Paris Agreement and its implementation. So it's talking both about the Paris Agreement as such, and more importantly, its implementation.
Andres, they were supposed to ask the difficult questions.
So I don't know, it's still, I think, up in the air whether the Trump administration will finally decide to stay within the Paris Agreement or not. I choose to see this as an optimistic and positive sign, maybe a little bit naive in this sense, but that is at least an indication that they are not totally denying these issues, including the Paris Agreement and the importance of that agreement. So, inshallah, we hope that this is a positive sign for the future.
So we talk about making changes on very different levels, and this is, of course, high level and could lead to visible, tangible results
Hopefully.
for people's,
Yeah.
let's say. Yes.
Andres, did you sense, it's almost exactly like a mini IPCC experience,
Yeah.
except with much less, much fewer layers, much fewer countries,
Yeah.
but not dissimilar topics.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting because it's almost like, I'm not part of the IPCC. I've been a reviewer and other topics, but not a writer. And that's why I said deja vu all over again on various topics. Of course, Kyoto was signed, but wasn't ratified by many countries. And so, did you sense that's what the experience was like?
In what sense you mean that?
In terms of being an international,
Yeah.
environmentally related document,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
in a sense, what the IPCC is.
Yeah, I don't have myself experience from that process.
Right.
It's difficult for me to actually draw that kind of.
In the past, has
parallels.
the Arctic Council had any?
This is basically, I think, probably one of the strongest texts on climate.
Right. Okay.
So that's positive, definitely. But of course, you
Good,
see,
good to hear.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
I'd just like to chip in here also say that we don't only see a global interest related to climate. There are also security issues and oil and gas interests.
Yeah.
Could you say something about that?
Now, first of all, I think the security issues are actually very much connected to the climate issue. I mean, so far, for almost practical reasons, it's difficult to be in the Arctic. It's difficult to navigate in the Arctic. So the Arctic has been a place, a region of stability and good cooperation. But of course, now when the ice is melting, the possibilities to have all kinds of activities, including economic activities, and the need to protect those activities, could actually, I don't say that they will, but they could actually increase tensions in the Arctic. And you couldn't rule out the possibility of some kind of militarization of that region. You see some tendencies already now, but it could be worse in the future.
So we were talking for a while here to and fro about different aspects of challenges in communicating science. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question or say something? Yes, we have to make two use of this microphone. Yes, please.
I don't know if the microphone is working, but my name is Karl-Axel Bruno, and I missed one thing, and that is economics. Because economics has been the rule. When you look at it globally, and you look at energy prices, and I myself invested 1,500 euros in a windmill. So my electricity comes from a windmill. And all the investments in solar energy and wind energy and wave energy have made the old coal and petrol industry nervous. So the price of 1 barrel of oil has gone down from $280 a barrel down to 50, and now it's 51. And this has made the boss of the Swedish National Bank very nervous because he wants to have inflation at 2%. And has been fighting and making the interest lower and lower. I'm sorry that I'm talking so high. Mostly I get people are getting annoyed at me. But the rent is going so low that we will have a loan crash soon. And people will not be able to pay the rents. So there will be more crashes than I mean, using coal and petrol is idiocy. And it is clear to me that it's idiocy. And but nobody in the big firms, they don't discuss these questions. They just try to look at their 3 months report. And their 3 months report tells them that we must not lose these battles.
Thank you. So the point is that there is also very strong economic interest, of course, in the Arctic region, backed up by substantial lobbying finance there as well. I would like to ask you if you, yes, please, yes, good. Start over here.
Can you just give me just
Yeah.
a second?
So the reason, as I said, we have the microphone is for the recording, so it won't help the sound in this very room. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the panel and for the whole discussion. My name is Alex Fridunger and I work as a teacher at the Folkhögskola, Folk High School, like an adult education center. And where I am and my colleagues teach, amongst other things, sustainability in different aspects. And I was thinking about what this sort of topic also related to, like what comes after communication in relation to what is the purpose of the communication, what do we want to see as a result of it, and where, like, just to respond as a sort of like, what can this communication of science be used for, and that one of the tools that we have are, as also has been mentioned, like to try to make it tangible, like that for people who aren't researchers or aren't academics, that's sort of like what can be done in my everyday life. And that is, I think, one of the challenges in not having black or white answers. Like what is then the purpose of you telling me this? What am I supposed to do with this information? And for us, I think that the using of trying to sort of use a sort of not holistic, but using sustainability on a broader scale to sort of match in for example, the science around the climate change, also with the sciences of democracy and social changes, and for that matter, also economics, that those things can sometimes be used to sometimes make it simple, simplifications, but also make it more complex. And by using that in the sense of like also creating tangible things to do, you can.
Yeah, can you just ask you something? Because we're talking about the different ends of the scale.
Yeah.
Simple and simplicity,
well,
complexity.
We work with upcycling.
How do you work with that?
We work with crafts and upcycling as a tool.
Yeah.
It is a course for upcycling, for example. So that is one of the tools that we have. But we also teach sustainability on a broader scale. So by using like a very tangible thing, we also, when we work with metals, we use crafts as a sort of like, now we work with this can, and when we work with this can, by crafting with that, we also talk about like, how does the metal industry look like? Where does the metal come from? How do the people who actually retrieve the metal look like? What are their working conditions, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, fine. So going from the physical object, or the very, very, very practical example, to system level there. Any comments from the panel? Yes, Susanna.
Well, I think it's very interesting to hear your experience in this field, because having communicated or reporting about all these complex and difficult climate change issues, everything from melting ices to storms in Vietnam and whatever, and what the science tells about it, I think I've come to some kind of point when I started to get a little more interested in using other senses of the people. And it all started when I was moderating a debate with some scientists, and there were music. I mean, there was an artist playing now and then. We had some short breaks in the talk, and the panel talk got quite intimate or close, and we were talking about fear or challenges or solutions and the complexity and from another perspective. And I saw a film that was on the Museum of Modern Art that has had a photo competition for people just to send your photos about climate change. And there was this panel, and a film from Paris was shown during this panel with these ice blocks that the Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson brought from Iceland, from the Arctic, from Greenland. And he calculated thoroughly how much carbon dioxide each ice block was. Ice block? Yeah.
Iceberg?
No, a small iceberg then.
Small
They fit in an airplane. So, but
Ice cube.
yeah, well, a piece of the ice boulder, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. So he brought them and they were placed out in a big square and it was filmed and people were taking selfies in front of them. They were touching them and they were actually sensing them and they were melting during the day that Paris conference was going. And I think that was smart. That was another way of science communication or climate change communication. So this is something I've been thinking of, and maybe we should talk afterwards.
Just a short comment on oil prices and the Arctic. I think it's, I mean, the relatively low oil prices, both a good and a bad news for the Arctic. Actually, it's bad news because it's crowding out investments in other renewable techniques, renewable energy, of course. But it's good news for the Arctic as well because it doesn't make it worth exploiting some of the resources, oil and gas resources in the Arctic, especially on the Russian side. Actually, right now it's actually too expensive. It's not profitable at this stage. So just a comment on the paradox of low oil prices in the Arctic.
What I would like to say is what we have been talking about scientists as senders now for a while. Send out, how do we make people understand what we wish to communicate? But still, send and receive it. There has to be something. The recipient has to be ready to embrace complexity. Am I right? Maybe we tend to oversimplify things because some things aren't simple. Well, they can get simple after a complex reasoning. And as if you have well-founded arguments, you can be opinionated as well. So, are we too shallow? Are we too prone to just discard things that we don't believe in or that seem too difficult to grasp? So, what's your experience?
That was a very difficult question.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right, because I think the complexity of a democracy is it's not any easy solutions. You have to think deep. You have to make thorough analysis, and you have to come to important conclusions because it's really important what you choose to do, and therefore I think it's very complex. If you compare to dictatorship, there is easy to make simple decisions and make action, do like this. And that is a contradiction as well, because if we have a dictatorship, we can solve all the solutions, solve all the environmental problems, because we should do like this. And if the scientists can say that it's okay to make that decision, then we can do it. But I think it's a very dangerous way to go because there is no such simple answer. So you have to make a complex analysis. That is really important.
Nina?
Can I ask?
Yes, sure. Just a minute.
I just wanted to comment on what you said with the sender and the recipient. And you asked this question in the beginning, who of us would be thinking he or she was a sender or a recipient? I think we need to be able to switch in our roles.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm a sender, but I also need to be prepared to be the one who receives the information, because otherwise we will never get into a dialogue. If I just talk to you and you just listen and you don't talk back and I become the recipient, then there will be no dialogue. And I think it's so important that we create these areas where we can have the dialogue, and especially through music, for instance, or through collaborations with museums. I have a colleague, she's working at the Nordiska Museum. In the beginning, I couldn't talk to her. We didn't understand each other. We need to switch these roles so that we understand each other, enter a dialogue, and I need to listen to her, she needs to listen to me, and then we switch the roles and it becomes a dialogue. And I think this we should not forget. This is very important that we have these areas where we are ready to say, okay, now I take a different role and I see it from a different perspective.
Walk a mile in another person's shoes. That's
Yes.
the old saying goes.
Yes.
So let's see, we had some questions. Yes, yeah.
Mm.
Would you please?
And I haven't heard anything about food and climate tonight. And I would especially like to ask John regarding food issues in your school. Do you think that you have enough access to scientific results regarding food consumption, or as you call it recently, is it over simplified, or what is your opinion about the information that you have access to and that you deliver at your school? And do you have what about your school? Do you have a meat norm at your school, or have you introduced some other norm of food consumption?
It's not quite to the point, but we can also break that maybe.
Yeah.
And I'll be with you in 2 seconds.
Thank you. It was a very difficult question as well, but I can say that we have regulations in our municipality, and they say we should have that much vegetarian food and this amount of meat dishes, and so there are regulations and ecological food, and the problem to have enough of the amount of ecological food is that you can't bring it in the market, because if more and more municipalities make these regulations about ecological food, there won't be any that much ecological food on the market, because they don't because it's too expensive, and that's a problem. But we have we try to make all the food that is not eaten in the school is going to a recycling bin and making some gas or something. I don't know what they do with it, but it's something that so there is a recycling thinking about the food, but of course we can do more.
What do you teach your students?
Yeah. This is something on the natural science program, for example. It's very important issues to speak about this, and it's an economical question as well.
In the first part of your question, you link climate to food, and routinely now, agricultural systems and communities, especially in low latitudes, use the predictive capabilities of the El Nino, La Nina phenomenon. In 1982-83, we had a huge event. 1997-98, another huge event. And research following those large El Nino events led to improved models and understanding of the system. So on a global scale, climate and food is linked in a very serious way to this El Nino mode of climate variability. Number one. Number two, I don't know the literature that well, but predictive models about future climate and what the impacts on agriculture, as well as human health and many other topics. Huge literature on that topic. The El Nino I know a little better. So yes, on a global scale, they're linked, especially if you consider whether or not human activity might be affecting the pattern of El Nino, which we know back really well 5 centuries.
Yeah.
I think it.
Yeah. You first. We take those who haven't the opportunity to ask questions first.
Yes, so my name is Barbara Wolfgang, I'm professor in geology, and I have a question regarding the rise of more populistic politicians, governments, and their denial of climate change. And I just would like to know, how do you deal with these people? How do you answer that?
Shall we start here and maybe pass it on?
I mean,
course, it's a problem in general. I think it seems as if we are living in a post-truth era in a sense. We're also sometimes science is relativized in the sense, your knowledge is as good as my knowledge. Your knowledge is based on science, and my knowledge is based on other things, but it's equally good. And that's, of course, it's a problem, and I think it's connected to what you're saying, populism and those kinds of movements. What to do with it? Well, I don't have any answer. I think that, we who still believe in good science, and I think we're still in a majority, we need to, guard the integrity of science and science as a base of good decisions, and don't play with them on this kind of discourse that we often hear.
Tom?
And education, of course.
Yeah.
I agree with Andres. The answer is very difficult. And I would add the 2009 Copenhagen meeting and the hacking of the emails was a critical event in dividing up the sides and the viewpoints, which is all the more, all this is, your point, Barbara, is very good. Your question is very good. If people were educated more and did not have to read the information sources that you're alluding to, then they could make their own decisions, and they would know when they see or hear something that is not factual or supported. That's what this is all about. Who do you believe? Who do you trust? Who do you want to believe? And I don't know the answer to that. Believe me, but I haven't voiced an opinion yet. So I'll just give you more facts. But that's not a bad thing. Let people decide for themselves about whether it's agriculture or the sustainability. I read an article a few months ago. It was a review of education curricula in the United States. They found the word sustainability. I don't remember the number, like 500, 600 times. So I have no clue what sustainability is. So I got to be educated there. But on your question, Barbara, it's a tough question. Some people think more scientists should become politicians and policymakers. I don't know if that's the answer, but I don't have an answer.
We believe in science. We believe in science, right? We all do. What about scientists then? What about role models, authorities? How important are they as messengers, would you say? Open question to you. Is it important with role models?
Role models?
Yeah. Like people you tend to listen to, or charismatic, or people that are believable, credible, individuals that carry a message.
There are some scientists who enjoy and are very good at communicating and becoming popular, and often spokespeople for science in general, or climate change in particular. There's a problem there. I too often hear the go-to people in science, the science people who the media like, because they simplify, being completely wrong. Recently, not just one person, famous people, not good. So it varies on a case-by-case basis on scientists communicating directly in a popular, like what's the TED Talks? What's
TED Talks, yeah.
Yeah, I gave a lecture once, someone said, you should do TED Talks. I said, what are those? And they said, well, there were people give talks to the public. I said, no thanks. They didn't invite me anyway, so I only go around inviting.
But sometimes it might help to simplify. Sometimes it might...
Simplify is different from being wrong.
Yeah. Anyone else on authorities and so on?
But I think, I know we have some very good communicators in science in Sweden, and what happens is that they are used very often. So it's the same message that you get, and that could be fine if you reach a lot of people. And I mean, but I think they can do their own show. I don't think they have to go through media, and I mean, it wouldn't be so thrilling for me as a news journalist to write the same thing as they have been speaking about. And it's not sure that they have the expertise that I need to answer questions in my pieces. So, but of course, I remember when I saw Earth in a Balance, wasn't that the name of Al Gore's movie in 2006? I was so jealous because he did it so good, and I've been writing for years and years and years, and he just in 1 hour got the whole message out in a magnificent way.
Nailed it.
Yeah, he did.
But he's got
He did.
people
He had a great style.
Of course, I know all this, but still, I want to do that too.
No, I just want to say that, I mean, I don't think you could, for example, underestimate the importance of a guy like Rockström in communicating, the challenges in the Arctic. I can't judge him, from a science point of view. My impression is that he's a 100% serious scientist, but it's up to you to, the other one. But, the importance he has had in this country to raise awareness of the problems we're talking about today, I think it's extremely valuable.
So he's helping the cause.
Definitely, I think. And it's also not only, educating people in general, but also influence policymakers in the direction, I think.
Yeah. What was the question? Oh, John would like to also do that?
I think that one very important thing is that we remember that fossil energy is the difference between fossil energy and solar energy. All life, including food, are going on solar energy. There are some bacteria that is living on oil down in deep. But in general, everything living, vegetables, animals, we are living on solar energy, and that is renewable. But fossil energy is taking up coal into the air, and that is the source of all the troubles that you have, Anders. And I want to say to you that, okay, you think that high oil prices are good. But do remember that we have to stop the demand for oil and coal by changing our way of life.
Yeah, thanks. There's a new voice in the audience. Please.
My question relates to the discussion we just had about having spokespersons for climate change. So what is your take on celebrity endorsements? For example, people like Leonardo DiCaprio. What do you think are the pros and cons of using people like him to take the message and reach out to audiences that maybe scientists would not be able to reach?
No. Leonardo DiCaprio, eh?
If you all think of a better answer, I can tell a different story. Because when we were sailing in the Svalbard waters last summer, we have a pretty ugly small boat that we use for research. It's not like our super equipped icebreaker wooden. So we were sailing on this old fishing boat that is made to carry 40 tons of fish, but when we go, it's of course empty, and we do not bring as much ballast as we should because we want to go long and so forth. So we sail on this pretty simple boat, and then comes Matt Damon in his super boat, which is called Latitude, and they have everything there. And one gets a little jealous, actually, honestly, that these people just come there and have a beautiful life. They had vacuum cleaners and personnel making the small boat nice, and we were just happy to get a shower, and then whenever we could go on land somewhere.
Trying a bit of aggression in this.
No, but it was just a huge contrast. So maybe there is a potential in using that, but at that point we had no chance
situations in a better way and make use of it. Maybe that would help. So now you can have a better answer than this little story here.
Let's pass the mic.
I think Leonardo DiCaprio, what I can see is that he's a very honest person and he's very engaged. And I think even though he's a celebrity, he's just a human being getting engaged in this very difficult question. So, and he's doing something, so why not? That's my opinion. I haven't fact-checked his programs. I just see a person that is using his status as a well-known, as a role model in a constructive way. I wouldn't die for making an interview with him, but you never know.
Depends on what he has to say, huh?
I don't have any view. I did like Wolf of Wall Street, though, but on that topic, no, I have no.
So let me just boil this down to a couple of bullets here. So how can scientists communicate more effectively? We've had some suggestions here. I don't know if I should put celebrities on top of the list though, but come on, Nina.
How can we make it more efficient?
Yeah, how can you reach out with the message?
I want more dialogue between people who are not sitting on the same table on a regular basis.
Yeah, so a mix of people.
Mixed people, yes.
And here I can see that the Klimatfestival has its function.
I think so too, yes.
Well, as I said before, I don't think the main problem is the communication from the scientific society to, at least not to the political sphere. I think that the main challenge is how to transform what we already know, based on scientific research, into policy issues. And for us, who I think we could say that Sweden has a rather progressive agenda. How could we use science to push other states to go on a more positive line when it comes to climate? And that requires a lot from us, because we need to understand science pretty well in order to use it as a tool to convince others.
You are facilitators.
In this case, I think or at least we should be.
Yeah. And you have your hands on a very accessible on qualified information all the time.
But most of the information in this respect is not qualified. I mean, it's qualified. It's not secret.
It's not qualified as in security qualified.
I think it's very important that we create the cooperation between the scientists and the upper secondary schools or high schools, because then you can invite scientists to come to the school. We have tried that in our school, and they have lectures there, and it's amazing to see the students listen to those reports, and also to invite maybe the students to the universities, because they are the students in the future in the universities, and come there and have workshops and listen to all those very important research results that are producing all the time. I think that is one way of creating direct dialogue with young adults and scientists. I believe in that.
And you've been successful in lowering the thresholds between university and upper secondary school.
Yeah, I think it's they are invited to our school and they come, and because we have excellent contacts through Hans here, the lecturer, and he making those contacts, and it's really amazing to see the students really listen to those scientists, and they do it very well.
Yes. So you are employed at the secondary school. Can I just introduce you for Professor Resource? But you're very engaged. How did this come about? Did the university approach you, or did you come?
Because there was a program, Research One for Teachers.
Yeah.
So we were 12 teachers around a couple different parts of Sweden, and we made a half PhD.
So it sounds invaluable. So it is further education for you on the various parts. Alistair is not here. He's left.
Yes, his wife has her birthday.
Okay.
So this is very valid reason for that.
My husband has two, but I'm still here.
I just have one comment. I don't need. Do I need a mic? No, I don't need a mic.
Well,
I don't think so.
Father is your absolute boss in this matter. So
I have kids myself in school, so I think the important thing is not, I think, to convince our kids that climate change is bad. I mean, we don't want to transform them into believers. I think that the important thing and the main challenge we have is to teach them scientific methods so that they could come to that conclusion themselves, and also to whatever topics they are confronted with, approach it with a critical and view and with the tools of that science gives us. So I think otherwise it could be actually a backfire if we take climate change as a bad thing, just for granted, it almost make it as a religion. I think science and scientific method should be at the core of this kind of approach.
Yes, sure. The communication around climate issues tends to be gloomy lately, but I think you give several examples of how it can be done without sort of without depression as a baseline there. Susanna?
Yeah, what's your question? How
can we be more efficient? You had some tips in the beginning because they talk about journalists and their willingness to receive messages.
Yeah, well, that I said already.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know. I think when I need some facts or when I'm writing about a scientific article, I talk to the scientist that is relevant. Otherwise, I don't know. I use them as quotes and banks of knowledge, and maybe they also have a good story to tell about something that highlights, that makes the article more attractive for the reader. Otherwise, I think it's maybe a PR or a communication strategist that can answer this question. I have no idea.
No,
I'm on the other side.
Yeah, you're on the side, and you're also supporting what Nina said, to try to come to a dialogue to understand what the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
And also, again, that communication is a discipline. I mean, it's just in itself. So some people are experts, others are not. I'm not. So Tom.
3 points. What Andre said is absolutely true. We do not want climate vigilantes out there who are seeking to find people who disagree with them. Secondly, we don't need to use epithets like deniers when we call people something. And third, something we haven't brought up. In my experience, scientists, most media, you excluded, and many other sources of information are flawed. The best sources of information on this, in my opinion, that are circumspect, well presented, and reasoned, come from the professional scientific societies like the American Geophysical Union, American Meteorological Society, sometimes Geological Society of America. European Union has their own EGU, and there are others. They have policy statements, but they also have more in-depth information, and they represent the leading scientists in these fields. And they might not be used. If you're in any way connected to this in a scientific way, like a student or a teacher or any way, you should join the societies and read what they say and contribute to them, because they are the spokespeople. When Al Gore spoke at the American Geophysical Union meeting, 2007 or 8, needless to say, there were a lot of people listening, and you couldn't get a seat, so they filled all the ballrooms. There is a merger between the two topics of climate change and the implementation of some policy related to it. And it's often the societies that either in print or at their annual meetings, you're going to get more than you would ever want from it, and you will thank me if you go to these meetings, I promise you.
So Nina, we're reaching the end of our seminar here. Would you like to promote something happening tomorrow?
Of course. Tomorrow is the day for Tom. So Tom has a very busy day. There will be 2 lectures that will be given by Tom. The first one is a science talk that is at 10 o'clock, I think, in this room. I would need to check.
So you don't have to leave.
Unless they order me home for what I said tonight.
Right. And then we have the big annual Bolin climate lecture that is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Aula Magna. The dean will be there, the chair of the Bolin board. Tom, you will probably get some flowers or anything. So we'll see how it goes. But this is a popular science lecture. Your title is?
Oh, the title of the talk is Biological Impacts of Climate Change. What would Bert Bolin, who this week is in honor of, say?
Right. And this is a talk that is dedicated to a general audience. There will be high school students. There will be time for questions as well. And we would be very happy to see you there, of course. So that was the advertisement for tomorrow.
Yeah. And will there be another climate festival, do you think?
I'm pretty sure there will be another climate festival next year, yes.
So are we, aren't we? Yes. And thank you for showing up and taking part. And keep up the good work. We have things to do out there. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah.